it seems like everything is turned inside out. And Isaiah, thousands of years ago, warned that any culture is headed for collapse when it reverses the values that created the health of that culture in the first place. I want you to see what Isaiah said in chapter 5, verse 20. You are doomed if you call evil good and call good evil. Destruction is certain when you call darkness light and light darkness. When right is considered wrong and what's wrong is considered right. Now, there was another man by the name of Asaph. Asaph was not a prophet. He was a songwriter. A lot of people think that the Psalms and the Scriptures were all written by David. Many were, but Moses wrote some of the Psalms. Solomon wrote some of the Psalms, and then Asaph wrote 12 of these Psalms. And I want you to see what he says for God in Psalm 82, verses 1 through 5. And this will lay the foundation for where we want to head into the book of Daniel. God stands up to open heaven's court. He pronounces judgment on the judges. How long will you judges refuse to listen to the evidence? How long will you shower special favors on the wicked? Give fair judgment to the poor man, the afflicted, the fatherless, the destitute. Rescue the poor and helpless from the grasp of evil men. But you are so foolish and so ignorant because you are in darkness. Watch this. All the foundations of society are shaken to the core. Daniel was one of those of the best and brightest who was taken captive by King Nebuchadnezzar when he took over the nation of Israel. And he ends up 70 years later as the second most powerful man in a culture that he was at odds with. It's a fascinating story. And he did it without losing his integrity. Now I want you to think about that. He's a 15-year-old boy. He watches the destruction of everything that he knew and loved. He watches his nation destroyed. He's taken as a prisoner of war. He'll never see his parents again. He'll never be with extended family again. He'll never see his homeland of Israel again. He would spend the rest of his life in a foreign, hostile culture. Now I want you to see the first 7 verses of Daniel chapter 1 with me. During the 3rd year of King Jehoiakim's reign in Judah, King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon came to Jerusalem and besieged it. Have you ever been besieged? The Lord gave him victory, gave King Nebuchadnezzar victory over King Jehoiakim of Judah. Now, did you get that? When the people wouldn't listen to the prophets that we were talking about earlier, when God sent the prophets and said, we got to get our stuff together here, folks, when they did not respond, what did God do? Just handed them over to the enemy, just like the prophet said, and permitted King Nebuchadnezzar even to take some of the sacred objects from the temple of God. So King Nebuchadnezzar took them back to the land of Babylonia and placed them in the treasure house of his God. He's just kind of showing off now. Our God's better than your God. These were your holy things, and now they belong to us. Verse 3, then King ordered his chief of staff to bring to the palace some of the young men of Judah's royal family and other noble families who had been brought to Babylon as captives. And he says, watch this, select only strong, healthy, and good-looking young men. Make sure they are very well versed in every branch of learning and gifted with knowledge and good judgment and are suited to serve in the royal palace. Did you see what happened there? The same 3 things that are prominent in our culture, that our society values. Beauty, brains, brawn. Bring me the strong, bring me the healthy, bring me the good looking. King Nebuchadnezzar said, bring me the best and the brightest. And then they put these young teenage boys through a 3-year indoctrinational program. He says, train these young men in the language and literature of Babylon. Verse 5, the king assigned them a daily ration of food and wine from his own kitchens, and they were to be trained for 3 years, and they would enter the royal service. Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah were 4 of the young men chosen, all from the tribe of Judah. The chief of staff renamed them with these Babylonian names. Daniel was called Belshazzar. Hananiah was called Shadrach. Mishael was called Meshach. That was an upgrade, wasn't it? Azariah was called Abednego. So what do you do when your life has been shaken like Daniel's life? Let me suggest 2 things. First of all, don't think God's against you. Don't think God's against you. And that's the first thing that pops to mind. Here's what the Bible says. The Bible's clear. 1 Peter 4:12, friends, when life gets really difficult, don't jump to the conclusion that God isn't on the job. Instead, be glad that you're in the very thick of what Christ experienced. This is a spiritual refining process with glory just around the corner. I know the typical response is to say, God, where are you? Why did you let this happen to me? But Jesus was clear all along. He said, friends, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart because I've overcome the world. So we're in school down here. We're not in heaven yet. Everything in this life is broken. You understand that, don't you? Everything in this life is broken. But one day, God's going to wipe every tear from our eyes. Glory is around the corner, but in the meantime, we've got to thrive right where we are because God is refining us like gold. The second thing I'd say is look for ways that God might be able to use whatever's going on in your life right now, that he can use it for good in your life and in the lives of others. You see, God can do that. He's the great recycler. He collects everything. He uses everything, the good, the bad, everything in our lives to bring about his good purposes in our lives.